Hey Geek, so for years now I've been using the Panasonic G85, and this was my first quote-unquote real camera, and it was one that I was absolutely super happy to have, and I love pretty much everything about this camera except for one major flaw, and that was autofocus, specifically video autofocus. And for anybody who's used cameras or know about Panasonic, they all know about the DFD contrast-based autofocus. And even though it worked great for photography, when it came to video, it was definitely a poor experience in my opinion. Because of this DFD system, it was constantly hunting. You know, there was posing in the background because the contrast-based system would be looking in the background and the foreground to see what was the best in terms of the focus and the contrast, and that was just something I could not use. It was practically unusable for me, and if you are a professional relying on autofocus, then Panasonic was definitely not the one to get for video autofocus. And because of that, I decided to move over to the Sony world, specifically the Sony A7 IV full frame camera. And let me tell you, when it comes to video autofocus, Sony is king. I absolutely love that camera when it came to autofocus. It would basically almost never fail me. And I would say 99% of the times with the Sony's A7 IV autofocus, I pretty much didn't have to think about it. And there were a few instances where it didn't work quite right. But overall, if you are somebody who relies heavily on autofocus, especially as a professional, I still would say Sony, specifically the Sony A7 IV, in my experience, is the best autofocus that I've used up to this point. However, Panasonic did finally make improvements and changes to their autofocus system by moving over to a hybrid phase detect autofocus. And because of that, I decided to trade in my Sony A7 IV for this Panasonic Lumix S5 2X full frame camera. And today I'm going to be giving you like some of my initial thoughts from the first testings of this video autofocus system, because I think this is going to be really important for people who maybe has a Panasonic or is maybe thinking about which system to go with. If you are a current Panasonic user, then you might be thinking, should I get this if autofocus is important to you? And if you're brand new to the world of cameras, then obviously you're looking at many options, and your top options for autofocus is pretty much going to be Sony and Canon. Now, before I get into the results of my initial test, let me tell you what I'm using here with my Panasonic S5 2X, and it is using the kit lens, which is the 20-60. I have everything in manual mode. In terms of my autofocus settings, I have it at the wide area, and it is tracking face and body. And before, I initially started with the face and eye. And then in terms of like how I normally shoot my videos, it's these type of videos. It's these talking head videos. And most of the times I am shooting this inside, but also I am outdoors a lot doing this vlog style videos. And from my initial test, I will say the autofocus is the best that it's ever been for Panasonic. But when I compare it to the Sony A7 IV, it's definitely not at that level, because there have been some few instances where the camera would just lose focus for no apparent reason. And even though I'm really happy with the initial results, I don't get that constant hunting. The simple fact that I've already had a few instances where it did lose focus for unknown reasons, it kind of makes me feel like, okay, is this the old Panasonic autofocus but just slightly better? Well, that's remained to be seen, because this is just my few first times of using this camera, and I'm still learning how to use the autofocus system, because this is definitely different from how Sony uses it. Canon, Fuji, Nikon, they all use different autofocus systems, even though the underlying general technology with a hybrid phase and contrast for most systems is the same. How they implement it and what they're using to produce their autofocus is different. And so right now I am very happy with the initial results, but I definitely need to do a lot more testing, especially if I'm doing these type of videos where I wanted to change focus and I don't want it to like lose focus, or trying to make sure that it's as reliable and consistent as possible. So in short, is this autofocus better than the previous Panasonic DFD autofocus? And the quick answer is absolutely. This is the best autofocus system that Panasonic has ever provided, and it's constantly getting better because at the time of this video I just updated this to version 2.0, which introduced a host of new improvements including to the autofocus. However, whenever I compare it to my Sony a7 IV previously, this is not at that level. If Sony a7 IV was 99% accurate and reliable, currently I would say with the S5 IIX it's probably at 90%. So as I learn more about this camera and I test all the settings, I'll come back with an updated video on my overall thoughts on autofocus, specifically video autofocus. So if you actually had any thoughts on this, be sure to leave in the comments area below. And if you did want to support my channel and get this camera, I will leave affiliate links in the description area below. So as always, if you did get value out of these videos, be sure to share, like, and subscribe, and I'll see you on another episode. Hey geeks, if you are a brand new creator and you simply want something easy to get you started, well, I got something for you with my Creator Starter Kit. This is a super simple step-by-step guide that's going to take you from having no channel to developing your very first YouTube channel, along with ideas, thumbnail designs, and other creator tips, including marketing. And the best part is, all of this is free. Simply head over to the link below, check out my page, and get started creating.